Let me just start by saying we're talking to JD Moore today, and JD Moore is a local artist here in Dallas, and I think he's a phenomenal artist who I've had the pleasure of engaging over these past couple of years on multiple levels. And so today I invited him to have a conversation with me about himself and his work. And today's discussion will just hopefully give us some more insight to who he is, how he thinks, maybe where he's been, what he's doing now, and where he's possibly going. Um, as a curator, art enthusiast, I'm interested in artists who are working now that who are working here locally. And JD is one of those who's, in recent years has gotten greater opportunities and reached some level of acclaim in his work. And so today we're just going to chat and have a casual conversation about him and his work. So JD, thank you for joining us today.
Hey man, thank you for extending the opportunity to dive a little deeper into where I'm at now. Kind of talk about where I've come from, and I appreciate your continued support. You definitely have helped me get to where I am now. Hopefully, where I will be.
Oh, happy to be a part of what you got going on, and look forward to amazing things with you. So I just wanted to come start off by asking you about your background. Part of what helps us understand an artist and what they're doing is kind of getting a sense of like where you started. So if you can kind of fill us in on just essentially where your work began, how you even got involved in like making art, how or however far back you want to go is up to you. But just kind of give us some background about you and your art upbringing.
Yeah. So I do several different types of art now. Um, all of those things have sort of um, manifested like the practices in a sequential order. But the first thing I feel like I did was I fell in love with art, and I remember doing that early on, specifically in elementary in the fourth grade. I have this feeling that I can recall as far as the joy of like storytelling and illustrating. And as a child, though, I feel like that comes sort of easily and naturally. And so throughout middle school into high school, it was really just a passion that was I more or less looked at as a hobby, something that you do in your free time or something you do just on the side. So I all the way up until high school thought that I was going to have a completely non-art related life and career. I had aspirations of joining the military. I was going to put art on the back burner, but out coming out of high school, still drawing. I started taking AP art classes in high school. So when I started to take it a little more serious, right on the tail end of high school, I asked a friend of mine who was in one of those art classes and who I also worked with um, how to get started in the tattoo business because his dad owns a tattoo shop. And so he would kind of tell me things here and there in the art classes and at this restaurant we worked at together. And so I just asked him one day out of curiosity, how do you learn? How do you get started? And, because honestly, I was really in a transition of like, I had been working at Jason's Deli since from my sophomore year up until a little after high school.
Mhm.
And I was like, I need to do something different. I want to do something that I would enjoy. So he said, well, you have to start an apprenticeship. You go through an apprenticeship process, and through that time, you learn how to be an artist. And sure enough, his dad was looking for an apprentice, and this was 2011. And from 2011, I haven't looked back at anything other than creating art. as, for a living. I really saw through, that opportunity, all of these ways of continuing to practice art, but also, have it be, a livable practice on. So uh,
Gotcha.
that's kind of the trajectory, the beginning kind of stages of all the things we see now, like tattooing, the paintings, the photography,
Mhm.
all happened uh, building through my apprenticeship into becoming a tattoo artist, into learning just the craft of creating, all the, you know, things that are to be studied about art, at least visual art, color, color philosophy and design, all these things kind of led me into being interested in, all these other facets. But uh, from 2011 until now, that's kind of when uh, the span of my professional art career.
Gotcha. So you attended, where did you attend high school?
In Rowlett
Okay.
High School, it's in the
Okay.
Garland Independent School District.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Um, so the apprenticeship started in high school.
It
Uh,
started a year after I graduated. I
a year
graduated.
after graduated high school.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so it's kind of safe to say that the serious nature of what you do really began there, in terms
Right.
of like, all right, I'm going to dedicate myself to
Yeah.
this craft. Do you have any hiccups along the way in terms of that understanding what tattooing and being an apprentice was about?
Well, I definitely, I had my idea of what the tattoo industry was, which is very stereotypical. I think of a lot of people who don't spend time in that realm, kind of paint the picture of what it could be like.
Hmm.
But I got into it. My experience is very unique, like all of our experiences, but it definitely tested my will and the desire I had for, creating art and really learning a trade, but learning a craft like an art. And there were times when, yeah, I mean, I was considering multiple times, throwing the towel in and, going a very clearly different direction, either something in the corporate world, which is a completely different lifestyle, I'm registering post high school, or, just give up basically and kind of call it quits on creating art. And the apprenticeship experience is kind of designed for that. It's supposed to test, your will to
Hmm.
create. And yeah, this little things I really, haven't thought about in a while, but yeah, there are those times in that process that it got tough.
I got you. I got you. So, can you tell us, did you do any, graduate work in terms of, undergraduate work, or did you just, it's been tattooing and then you matriculated into the other aspects of art that you do?
I was pursuing from high school, in that phase of, wanting to join the military, that early in the apprenticeship, that I attend community college. That was kind of a transition that made sense for all the things that I was doing at the time. And I was towards the end of my time at my community college, started to take classes, specifically towards uh, art, not just visual art. I did a lot of sculpting, a lot of 3D work in the studio. So a lot of sculpture, ceramics, and things like that.
Hmm.
And studying in that sort of realm, this, university's collegiate setting of artists and tools and resources to, kind of, build, on this sort of foundation, was something that I contrasted with an apprenticeship, and I
Hmm.
appreciated both atmospheres. And so I definitely try and, blend those learning styles and environments, something a little bit more traditional versus something, more untraditional, I guess, depending on who you ask, uh, as it relates to, yeah, a tattoo apprenticeship, but, uh, yeah, that's about the extent of any sort of traditional training is what,
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So in that vein, I wanted to say the first time I encountered your work as I was sitting here thinking um, was at Lark on the Park um, over just on the north side of Clyde Warren.
Mhm.
And I realized that I think I encountered you even before then at an art fair at Southside on Lamar. I want to say. So you did, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you did spend some time in Italy, correct?
I did, yeah. That was the last place I've traveled to,
Okay.
Atlantic. Yeah.
Was there did you do any other like residencies of anything overseas?
I did the year before. I did one in France.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I thought in our conversations, I knew about the Italy deal, but I felt like you might have said something about spending time in Europe prior to the
Mhm.
Italy trip.
Right, right.
Tell us about that experience, and both of those in terms of like what was your reason for going, and what did you do while you were there?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you asked just on the tail end of understanding like my education or my, training, because
Hmm.
I like to tell people that I am not classically trained or traditionally trained. I don't have, any sort of, even my associates doesn't reflect an arts, background, but beyond, that I wanted to take an untraditional approach to learning,
Hmm.
which residencies provided. But this is just something I'm learning sort of in real time. The first one that I went on was a stay that I had in France, which just kind of came about um, very unexpectedly. I just saw a post from an Instagram page that I started following, and they were marketing a residency as sort of a competition of sorts. Like you could be selected to receive like additional funds to, travel and stay in this place, and they hadn't done it anytime like this before. So I wasn't even sure that it was real, but yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience. So I get there, and there are all other American artists, all these different disciplines and backgrounds, ages from all across the country. And we lived in the chateau for about 2 weeks. And the way that was structured was for, a very, you know, organic sort of just back and forth between artists, staying together, experiencing, creating in this sort of um, environment where there's room for everybody, but everybody's still very communal. And so this was just a learning opportunity that I um, took advantage of. I didn't realize how much I would learn in this sort of retreat. So the next one, I wanted to give a little more intention to learning and to, studying. So
Hmm.
the one and did the following summer in 2018, I went to Italy to study kind of what I am focused on in my art, which is very heavily influenced by a lot of classic Italian art, a lot of things done during the Renaissance. And I studied fresco painting while I was there. So
Oh, okay.
um, that is, a goal that I had. I learned a lot of other things and had a lot of other experiences while I was there. But that's kind of opened my eyes to what residencies could be, a very untraditional way of learning and sort of just sharpening the tools in a way that, yeah, I feel like works better for me than maybe uh, the classic way, of instruction. So I,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think in this day and time, the traditional mode of going to an institution of higher education and matriculating through a program that someone's designed or helped design for you at the towards completion of and termination of potentially a degree, master's degree of some sort, um, is the way we think about art and how education, traditionally those things come together. But I think definitely in this day and time, there are different ways and different approaches. And I think it's about the person and their determination to develop their skill level and those experiences. And you can get those in a multitude of ways. It doesn't have to necessarily be under the tutelage,
Right.
of some college professor or whatever.
Sure. Right. Mhm.
Um, with that in mind, you're painting,
Mhm.
and we started off with the conversation around you know, really starting out as a tattoo artist.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but what I've seen of your work is, it definitely, you have definitely a draftsman kind of approach to your work, a sculptural nature to the kinds of paintings that you do, that I've seen you do. But then I see those elements of graphics,
Mhm.
and I think those kind of allow you to play in and out of different kinds of mediums. So I mean, are there any like specific approaches or thought processes about each of those areas, tattooing versus painting, or do you see any kind of crossovers in those?
Oh yeah, the crossovers definitely are why I pursue, these specific disciplines, because they do have their own sort of compartmentalized nature about, a process of creating that specific type of art, but learning the lessons of design or color or composition of either a painting or a tattoo, I can then apply those things over to, and I'm still in a process, I feel, of finding my specific visual voice and, what with my specific experience, my unique experience of how I, have gotten to this artistic point.
Hmm.
So, I am, using the resources that I have, the practices that I have, the painting, the photography, the tattooing, and cross over, those things. So, I can just continue to study and just really, I don't know. The passion is really it's a curious. I'm just curious as to how much better, how much different, I can make something. So, um, yeah, they all definitely at some point, kind of marry each other.
Are there any specific, I think this is kind of a traditional question to ask, but are there any artists that you're looking at, that you're studying, that you're, I mean, I know earlier you mentioned the residency in Italy and being intentional about, your time there and, the master's works. And if anybody's seen some of the images and the things that you're doing on Instagram that you post, I can absolutely see that influence. But we get influences from all kinds of places. Is there anybody or anybody's work who's like really standing out, or helping you kind of imagine where you can be or where you can go, what you might want to try or be more curious about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are contemporary artists that, I feel like a lot of people are familiar with. I mean, there's the Kehinde Wileys, the
Mm-hmm.
Art by Walk, you know what I mean? There's, a lot of names that I draw blanks on, but I do see a lot of the contemporary, like portrait artists. Uh, um, I'm very interested, of course, in, so-called black, black art from black artist, but also seeing, you know, a lot of Brazilian, a lot of South American portrait work, you know, is just very influential to me as well. Like patterns and colors or something that you know, I'm focusing on. But a lot of my work, the people that I am influenced by are the people who are narrative and mostly people who are figurative in
Hmm.
their work. So the artists of antiquity, or you know, just in recent, like modern history, you know, early 1900, you know, English and early American painters, to, you know, people during the, you know, the Harlem Renaissance, you know, a lot of movement and motion, you know, so I'm still within the realm of straightforward realism,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of things I'm trying to take, you know, from, you know, the what branches away from that. So yeah, that's kind of the art that I'm influenced by, and less specific people. Mm.
Gotcha, gotcha. And it makes sense. I think um, I asked the question because I know there's so much art out there now, and we have so much to that we're exposed to that, you know, will, by the time it makes it into a book, will be through another couple generations of artists
Yeah,
making work. You know, if you think
right.
about it, and so social media provides a tremendous opportunity um, for artists to get their work out there to be seen. Um, do you have any specific goals in mind in terms of like where you're headed in your career? I know um, you've definitely sought out opportunities, and people have sought you out to do, you know, mural projects in a
Mhm.
couple of different places around Dallas. And so, is there anything in particular that you're hoping to accomplish in the next, you know, few years, or anything you think you're on a trajectory towards?
Mhm. Well, you know, I have my own short, you know, mid and long term goals as it relates to, you know, what I'm, you know, trying to accomplish with my art. Um, in the short term, I would like to continue just practicing and refining the skill that I want to stand for as my voice, and you know, continue to create work that, you know, reflects my progression, both painting, tattooing, and the mural work is something that I am pursuing to transition me into like the sort of midterm goals, which are to, you know, get more into the business, you know, of art, because you know, with murals, you're dealing with a lot more entities. I'm learning, you know, down to, you know, property ownership, you know, to leasing image rights, you know, different locations. And so I'd like to, you know, still be able to be a working and practicing artist, but become more or less a, you know, an art entrepreneur. And then I'm hoping to have, you know, built up a body of work that can, you know, sort of just accredit it myself for the ideas that I have behind the work, which I hope to, you know, kind of get into education, but you know, using, you know, the things that I'm studying, and you know, what the pieces of me that I'm putting into my art, getting those pieces out, and you know, making change, you know, essentially within my community, you know, however small or however large, uh, that I can. So that's kind of the where I'm going, where I think I'm going.
Um, in relationship to the work that you're doing, and I'm most curious about your painting, um, particularly the things that I've seen you do on IG. There seem to be small, seem to be intimate, whether they're studies or full paintings, or so on. I noticed there's a thread with these kind of body parts,
Mm-hmm.
lighting, skin tone, kind of reminiscent of like a Caravaggio type of, you know,
Right.
approach.
Yeah.
So is that anything in particular that you're just like, I'm just continuing to just study, or is this like this is something that I'm trying to truly develop and make into a body of work where I want to ultimately present these pieces. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so what you're talking about right now is a series that I've been developing for a while, and I
Mhm.
decided to call it Mood, which
Okay.
is sort of a combination of two words, mood, MOOD, and then nude, NUDE.
Okay.
And the idea initially for the series was to give myself a place to just practice like the technical skill that I want to present, have this, very rich, saturated flesh tones and lighting, information and sort of this body language that could tell a story. And so, but what, I need for all of that is a lot of, research. And so for this, it is the visual sort of without, the added complex narrative. They're just, satisfying images, but that all do have themes that really focus on the technical parts, like the color palette, the lighting style, uh, the composition, and again, just really focusing on the figure and the body
Mhm.
and what that could do as far as storytelling. Actually, I can pull up uh, kind of a few that I've done
Oh, that'd be
recently.
great.
So this is one of the more recent ones that I've done. So this is an example of sort of an exploded or just very like cropped, zoomed in view of a figure. I'm trying to keep it simple with, um, the subtlety of the body language, but I feel like there's a lot that could be said about what we're looking at, which is so now I am focusing on um, finding and sort of communicating narrative, within these pieces and having a body of work to show that does have, consistent theme that would be fitting for, some sort of gallery showing, having, a thesis that could go along with it. Um, but for right now, yeah, I am working more so on developing the skill, um, to paint ideas that are more complex.
Gotcha. I
Mhm.
mean, I think those are beautiful examples of um, one purely technical skill. Um, I think in this kind of, uh, while I love it, overly saturated world of art. I'm on Instagram almost constantly looking at, these different curated lists of artists and all of these interesting imagery and all these interesting things that people are doing. Is these folks with pen and pencil and these really hyper realistic drawings to things that are bizarre and fantastical to abstract. And so
Mhm.
I think the thing that resonates with me with the work that you're doing, the image that you've shown, because I remember seeing you post all of those, is that there is, it harkens back to just a traditional approach to um, form, light, like you
Mhm.
say, composition, and technical skill. Those really soft tones, the focus on anatomy. It takes me back to school where I was in figure drawing classes and painting classes where I'm just trying to develop my hand skills and my eyes and
Mhm.
being able to record. And there's something that's timeless about that.
Right.
And for you to be in that space and choosing to do small compositions and they are so intimate, and it's like it brings back that appreciation I have for all of those great artists like a Titian and a Rubens and a Caravaggio and a Michelangelo and all of these amazing artists from antiquity who
Right.
whose art I fell in love with. And so for you to decide to go that direction seems to be, kind of counter to the majority of the things that I've seen. And I think that's one of the reasons why I appreciate it, because it seems calculated. Like you really decided, like, this is the place, this is the lane I want to be in, and this is what I want to talk about. And I'm not concerned about trying to do what is popular or
Yeah.
what is trending, in art, or what might even just sell. But like,
Yeah.
let me just make these beautiful paintings that have something unique to say in their simplicity. And so I think that to me stands out, and why I wanted to talk with you and learn a little bit more about where you are and what you're doing. So kudos to you, sir.
Means a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, you kind of spoke what my intentions are, are to keep it subtle and to really have this sort of academic approach to the final result, which I guess this would be an example of a transition beyond that, where I am using a more full figured and have that sort of layered narrative of atmosphere and lighting and
Hmm.
items and things like that. Um, but this work that you're looking at came before what I showed you with mood. So
Hmm.
my idea now is to take where I am with those paintings and what I have learned as far as application and concept, and kind of make work that is an evolution of uh, the mood series. Um,
So
right there.
in to I mean, in relationship to the images that you just showed us,
Mhm.
those for people who might be watching this, and might choose um, to view this discussion. These were a collaboration with the artist Chesley Williams. And if you could tell us just a little bit about what these are and where they come from.
So one of my ideas that I want to do as an artist is to collaborate with other creatives, so I can kind of create this ecosystem of uh, content creators and artisans. And so I collaborate. I was seeking out a fashion designer, which Chesley sort of fit the category because she's a sculptor who made a wearable piece. So this series really features these head wraps,
Hmm.
and there are images that correlate with scenes depicting American history. This is early Louisiana during the Tignon laws, which is a very storied sort of heritage of the people in Louisiana, New Orleans, pretty heavy. And so we took these stories from that time period where there were some images that already existing. Like this is a recreation of a fairly, well-known portrait, but featuring contemporary, contributions. So this is one of Chesley's raps, made to look as close to the actual art as possible. This is a local model, and we collaborated with also, a stylist and a makeup artist. So, this is my contribution to that series, which
Hmm.
were the photos which we took, but then I took those photos and turned them into paintings. So these are the paintings of the photos that we took featuring all of our work.
Yeah, I remember we featured the exhibition at the South Dallas Cultural Center,
Mhm.
and to see the photos were striking in and of themselves. Was Chesley was very, I think, thoughtful and calculated about how she um, how she choreographed, designed, constructed these scenes.
Right.
Obviously, to feature, the head wraps, but also to talk about the story of the Teen Young time frame. And so you see there, yeah, the actual head wraps that she made, but then the photographs are adjacent to those. And you were the photographer on that, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so then you, not only is she making a commentary on this particular time period, then you turn around and you are commenting on her work by
Yeah.
creating an entire body of work. And so I was like, this is freaking awesome. This is amazing that, you guys work together so deeply and so collaboratively that, you get essentially three bodies of work, out of this. They're the head wraps,
All
then the
right.
photographs, and then the paintings of the photographs. And so I thought it was just a phenomenal set of images, phenomenal paintings. And again, I think that the way you guys work together to create those photographs just set the stage for those paintings that you
Right.
created. And it's
Yeah.
just like, wow, this is, I think, collaboration at its best, where you have these two artists that are, have their own lanes, and they found a way to come together and make some really interesting and thoughtful and beautiful, visually beautiful work. So, again, kudos to you guys for, all that you did in that. Um, if you could go back up to some of the chalk drawings, because I think this was kind of where I first got introduced to you and what you did, and your, your draftsmanship, and your skill and ability. This was at Lark on the Park. And so how did you get involved with them?
So yeah, this is definitely what kind of catapulted me from uh, focusing on tattooing solely and understanding that there's a space for fine art and that there are people seeking, filling up wall space. And this restaurant, which is it's a different restaurant now. Lark on the Park is the one that had this rotating sort of chalk gallery in their dining room, and you would submit as an artist an illustration to be picked in the quarterly turn of this installation. And I, by happenstance, knew and had a relationship with one of the staff, and so even to know that this is an opportunity and to know that there are people who are familiar with my work that also, have these venues is, how I was able to really use this as like a stage for public art and, you know, and working in a medium that I'm not familiar with, but still kind of interjecting the ideas, of the figure storytelling, all that type of, uh, that type of thing. So this is one of them. I did maybe four, maybe five. This is one of my, I think, favorites though.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I remember having dinner there and looking up and seeing, the work and being, awestruck by, just the illustrative nature of what you did. I'm a big fan of illustration, um, but also just kind of out of the box thoughtfulness. And I remember seeing your name there, and then I ran into you somewhere, and I was like, man, I know this dude.
yeah. We met at the it was this gallery exhibition. It was the ones that were featuring
That's
these.
right. When you were at the Latino Cultural Center.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think this one right here.
Yes. Yes. That's right. That's right. It's like I was trying to connect those dots because while I'm not always good with names, I'm much better visually. in terms of remembering. And when I saw that, I was like, man, I know this name. And we did have that conversation. And um, you know, I think I approached you and we chatted. And then I was like, let's talk again. And we talked again and have had this kind of relationship ever since then.
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah.
yeah. Because I remember those being very thoughtful. Kind of, they were to me like the school of Athens,
Yeah, that's
and you know,
exactly it.
reminiscent of that, um, and thinking, wow, this guy's doing something different. You
Mhm.
know, like there's something else going on, and I get the references, and I kind of see where he's coming from, and to me, it stuck out. You know, it stood out amongst everything else that I saw. Um,
Yeah, from that, I think that was 2016 maybe, maybe
yeah, I think so.
2015, 2016. And so from there, and then the Ting Young project being like, well, that was probably 2018, I think.
I think so.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of, when you talk about what I plan on doing, I would like that to be in this sort of mid-goal range of collaboration, really using a lot to make, a lot of art that can exist in different places. Uh,
Hmm.
but, keeping consistent this imagery that I'm studying and, the way that uh, all the information is being received. So that's yeah, a lot of what kind of is what I'm working on.
Gotcha. Well, man, I won't take too much more of your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and for us to be able to get some insight into you and your work and what you're doing. Definitely plan to keep up with you where you are and always follow, you know, what you got going on because I think you got a bright future ahead of you in terms of, you know, opportunities that will come your way, but just your determination, your level of skill, your the the focus you have on doing the thing that is really interesting and specific to you, and being able to kind of like shut out the extra noise that's going on because there's a lot of noise, and I know you know you've been heavily involved and been invited to have conversations about other things that are going on in this particular time in history.
Right?
But
Yeah.
yeah, um, I think the last question I have for you is just something I like to think about for myself from time to time, and so I would be curious to get your response to this. Is JD Moore today, if he were talking to his younger self at any given point in time, that could be 5 years ago, it could be 15 years ago. Um, is there any particular advice, thoughts, wisdom that you know you would share with him if you could sit down and chat with him? If you had JD's ear uh, early on and say, "Hey, let me say a couple things to you. Let me tell you a couple things." You know, what tidbits might you share with that guy?
Yeah, I wish, yeah, that could be the case because first thing that comes to mind is that I would, really sit them down and explain that even though it doesn't feel like, there's progression and that things aren't happening the way or how soon, you would like them to happen, that you will and you are making progress and that, the work you're doing will mean something. It might not mean in much now, or at least it might not seem like it, but it will, and it'll be worth it. So I would definitely that would definitely calm a lot of anxieties, knowing that there has been progression that's been made, and so I'm hoping that this is also sort of the talk from the future saying that it's there's not progression like you would like it to be, but it's things are being done, and there are things to be grateful for. So That's what I'll say.
Awesome. Well, man, again, I appreciate it. A fan of what you're doing, a fan of your work, and I mean all of what you're doing, because I know there are things beyond the art that you make, that the work that you're doing for, the community, and your desires to try to understand the world around you, and to help make things better for others. So, I say keep up the good work, continue to fight the good fight, and continue to make dope art.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate the encouragement. Yeah, because I definitely intend on
Absolutely. Well, man, I will go ahead and wrap up here, but once again, thank you. This is an artist talk with JD Moore. And if you haven't had a chance to see his work, I highly encourage you to look him up on Instagram. He does have a website. And if you are so inclined to even commission a piece or some work, I'm fairly sure he might give you a nod. So, check this brother out and follow and support what he's doing. I promise you it'll be worth your time. Thank you, sir. And we'll be talking soon.
it. Yeah, thank you, John.
All right. Hey, have a good one. See you later.